star interstellar. I hope you are having a very blessed Beltane. And as usual, I would like to go ahead and just take a moment to give thanks for you being here, and also to do a little invocation of energy to set that tone for the transmission today. So it's like to really give deep thanks to the Holy Womb Space, the Divine Mother that provides this space for all of us to grow, live, flourish, and have these beautiful lives. I also want to give a deep thanks to the Divine Father, that one truth, that one point within us that allows us to evolve and involve and tap into that inner truth so that we may know that light and move towards that light. And also the divine child, that Christic spiral force that's always bringing us deeper into coherence and unconditional love. And for this special message, I'd also like to give thanks and invoke the tree spirits that I work with, the spirits of the celestial and earthly dragons, also the Druid lineages and the guides that I have in those lineages. Deep gratitude and thanks to all of those for being present in this moment and assisting in this transmission. And in particular, what I wanted to share a little bit about, and this may spiral into a bunch of places that, kind of a message that is a little bit timeless in certain regards. I try my best not to do time-stamped messages anymore. What I share, although may have a particular energy of the moment and astrology and things like that involved, that this message is going to be something that has a lot of beautiful meat and meaning in it for whenever you're checking into this message. And that being said, this does have the inspiration of Beltane, and of course this beautiful time of the year and a holiday, also this upcoming new moon, because we are in a very, very special window and portal here. I've been doing these continued messages that go deeper into this energy of Taurus season. We recently had the Scorpio full moon. Now we're pulling up on the Taurus new moon on May 11th. And so this recent full moon has really started an initiation, a process, a portal of really digesting a lot of inner underworld subconscious material. On a planetary level, I've talked about how this has a lot in processing and clearing out things that were still left over from the age of Taurus, from that ancient age, because we are in this space of processing and clearing out and merging a lot of timelines that want to be cleared, so that as we move deeper into the Aquarian age, so that we can connect to and deepen into the highest of timelines in this new Aquarian age, as we anchor the Aquarian Christic force, this 5D and higher Christ, Sophia Christ grid, and that consciousness here on the planet. And that being said, the way that this manifests internally is, especially on that last full moon, you may have become aware that there were a lot of subconscious inner underworld forces and energetics that may have been influencing the life that you may even still be in this moment. The decisions that you may have been making, and why you were relating to certain people in certain ways, why you were having certain connections in your life, why you were taking certain actions or making certain choices. And what came up a lot on that full moon is the beginning of the process of digestion and processing of that stuck and stagnant energy. And the way this works is just like in nature, right? We have Scorpio has a lot to do with, that world that we can't always see in nature, the soil, the food web of the soil, and how the food web of the soil contains a lot of latent energy and nutrients, right? This is really the womb and that void space that is ruled by the dragon species, right? Go all the way out into the cosmos, and we have the cosmic seraphim and plasma dragons that form everything that we are part of inside of. And in our inner world, this is the digestive tract, right? This is also the sexual generative organs, right? The masculine, feminine sexual generative organs. But this is also the inner digestive tract, and how those things relate to one another, and how that area in our body processes and takes stored energy and converts it into something that is usable, so that we can create new worlds, create new lives. And this is why Taurus is that torso, right? It is that spinning spiral of energy. It is the womb space as well, but it is also how these things all work together in that spiral force to generate energy, to anchor in the toroidal field of the reality that we are experiencing. And so in order to create new realities, in order to live in new worlds, there are things that have to be broken down and processed so that they can be brought into the world of sound and light, right? Which Taurus, the end of Taurus, especially as we start to move into Gemini, has to do with the Pleiades and the Hathors and those beings. And that's why I've said, if you tune into my message that is in the newsletter for Mystical Illuminations, I talked about connecting with the Hathors and their light and their wisdom and intelligence. And this is also that dichotomy there of how the Draco, the dragons, and the reptilian species work in tandem with the Pleiadians, right? The Pleiadians are those beings of light, and those light force beings, that auric field, and that consciousness of that auric field around our body. And the Dracos are the spiraling force. They're the force that takes the energy from the womb, from the void, and manifests it into solidification, that Taurus energy, which is really the value, which is really that which comes into solidification, right? Which comes into manifestation as things that are actually worthwhile and actually worth something. And that being said, this axis is also a lot about the integration of those places inside of ourselves, right? Because what happened on a galactic level is there was a split between the Pleiadians and the reptilians. There was genetic manipulation that was done, cloning that was done, that really split these two species apart, and has created a lot of inner tension, a lot of inner battle, where, you know, these cosmic Pleiadian aspects of certain beings on this earth need to be resolved with those reptilian Draco forces and brought back together in a unification by processing our shadow materials, by processing our trauma, by be willing to face those things within us that are both sides of those equations, to really resolve those, so that we can actually command both sides of those equations as we connect to that inner Father, Mother, God source within, that is not one or the other, but actually has the ability, you know, going all the way back to the original founders of Lyra, that source within the self. As we go back to also that origin of ourself in Orion, that inner origin of Orion, as we come to that inner source within, we start to command all of these energies by not so much identifying with one or the other, but by identifying more as that source, creator, creation, that inner source, connecting with the divine will within, and allowing ourselves to become under dominion of all of those forces within. And in order to do that, we can't get caught up in, you know, one side or the other. And in particular, there's a lot of processing going on around how sexual energy and different addictions and those things are used to manipulate, especially around the areas of money, and how the feeling of, you know, looking outside of ourself for our value causes us to manipulate, or looking outside to another, like needing sexual connection from another, utilizing that sexual energy to manipulate someone else because we don't see that we are the source of that energy. We're connected to that source within. So there's those kind of manipulations that go on. And this also has a lot to do with food and how we process and digest what's going on in terms of subconscious forces of people around us and where that manipulation is taking place, and also our ability to give voice to not willing to stand for being manipulated in those ways. Now, what's in particular important about this next new moon that we have going on is we're in the middle of this portal, right? We're kind of in the middle of this void space, which has a lot to do with the way, like I talked about, there's the, let's say, the dichotomy of the way that the dragon forces work in the digestive tract and the toroidal field, right? So in human design, this is the G center. This is the place where those two forces meet. The spirals come together, and we're like in the middle of that void, of that portal, where it's like, okay, the digestion process is taking place and it's spinning and it's spiraling, but it hasn't all worked through its magic and digestive process where we can see all the forces, become aware of making all those things conscious. So they're brought into the sound and light, the conscious mind, so that we can see everything that's going on. And so we're in the middle of that portal, that in between. And what's important at this time, and any time we feel in those spaces, is to allow that digestive process to take place and allow awareness of all the different timelines, whether that be timelines of past, so that we can see into the past and ways and things that have been influencing us, influencing our connections with people, our interactions with people, where we've been giving our power and our sovereignty away to people, places, gods, beings, whatever it is, aliens, or the future, and how we can take the energy from those places in the past and pull them out, right? Like do that weeding of the earth and pull out all of those things that aren't there, so that the new electrical forces, the nervous system, right? So these aspects of the nervous system can come into and start to digest those minerals that are in that earth, make them conscious, and we can manipulate sound and light from that inner source to create that new world, to create those new worlds and its timelines that we want to be in, by having the courage, that Leo type of energy, having the courage to tap into that inner child, that inner self-worth, and move that energy into that highest timeline, right? And speak about our worth and tell people and be willing to speak about those things and call out the dark forces that we see that have been manipulating us through another person or situation, call ourselves out for ways that we have given in to those forces, so that we can manifest those new timelines in a reality. I want to also talk to you about the immensity that we may be feeling in terms of how important this next shift, this next choice or path or direction that comes in, because this next new moon does have a lot of it's kind of like a merging, or there's kind of like the four directions coming in, or like these four multiple portals, and we could feel a certain sort of heaviness in terms of the choice point of like which timeline, which direction. And a lot of this is about being receptive, right? What I do in these types of situations is, first of all, I kind of do a daily prayer, so to speak, where I'm sensitizing myself to that connection to Father, Mother, God, Source within, in tandem with knowing my inner authority in human design, and also sensitizing myself to the guidance of that inner Father, Mother, God, Source, connecting to my guides that I become aware and have clarity of what is the highest and best timeline for myself, what is the highest and best timeline for humanity and all of those involved. There's a continual kind of intention and prayer that I ask for it being very clear. And this is something that you can do. Also, what else is important to note is that the ancients, my Druid lineage that I'm connected to, because I go a lot into the forest around here, and if you don't have forest where you live, it's okay. All of these spirits and connection to these energies are available to you wherever you are, simply by going on inner journeys, by doing prayers and connections or ceremonies to connect to the guidance from these energies. Beltane in specific, because there is an aspect of this directional shift that has to do with every time around this year, around Beltane. And this is why, the ancients, the Druids, one of my lineages, would connect to the trees. They would ask for guidance from different tree species around different times of the year. They would utilize connecting to the magic of these beings, because the trees really are the solidified celestial light, right? And these druids, magicians, these shamanic teachers would connect and want to know the guidance of the stars, right? Like the light, right? That is that solidified constellation or celestial light. And so they knew, in order to sometimes receive the clarity of that celestial light, they would connect to the tree species that had to do with these areas of the zodiac, these times of the year. And specifically, a big one for this time of the year is a willow tree. The willow tree was always known to be assisting in going in new directions. First of all, had a lot to do with when we would set off in new directions, having the courage to go into those new directions, those new spaces. Now, this also worked in tandem a lot with Alder, right? So where Alder was a little bit more about the initiation, that action, the Alder tree helps us with the courage to face those forces within us, right? Like we talked about the scorpionic energy of the courage to face, let's say, the darker shadow realms, to be able to bring them into consciousness and have the courage to, let's say, battle them or digest them or process them in a way that we could act on doing the shadow work, the trauma work to to process that energy, to bring it into available light. And where Willow is really, as we're moving in that new direction and seeing as the clarity starts to come in, then having the courage to move into that unknown, that direction, and being receptive to that new direction that is of higher will, is that creator's will of Father, Mother, God source within us, and having the clarity to come in from the external, that light to come in from what's around us so we can navigate in that new direction. Now, what I would say with regards to this is, really all you have to do, if you don't have any willows in your area or anything like that, or any alders in your area, look them up online. Go into some sort of meditation in your consciousness where you see and connect to the energy of these trees, and ask for them to show you things. Ask for that strength, that courage to go in that new direction, to have the courage to set off in these new areas in your life. And like I said, you can also connect to that space within to ask for the highest and best timeline to always be what is manifest. Now, another thing that I want to talk about is, in terms of making these choices, when it comes to our soul's path, when it comes to that path which we are supposed to be on, that highest and best timeline, in one way or another, there are always mechanisms from our guides, our oversouls, our inner Father, Mother, God source, that we will end up in that direction in one way or another. I talked to my friend the other day, beautiful dear friend of mine, about it's like a GPS. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Google GPS and how that works nowadays. And there is, that feature where you're traveling, you set that destination or something like that. And you can really look at it like in this case, it's kind of like your oversoul is always setting the ultimate destination in one way or another. But if you look at these different choices, like taking these trips, something like that, there's that rerouting feature, right? It's like we may make a wrong turn by not hearing a message or receiving the guidance and what it is our oversoul is trying to tell us through different conversations or messages or hints or feelings and things like that. And what will come in are these little reroutings, right? And the thing is, you could look at this and say, well, then is it even important what choice I make? And yeah, because if you look at those different pathways on Google, right, there's always different time, right? It'll be like, well, this one's 15 minutes, this one's 10 minutes. This one may have a more beautiful scenic kind of route, although it may be a little bit longer, but this one may have there may be a traffic jam in that direction or something like that. Some of them may even have like difficult like accidents involved, or having to stay overnight in a location if it's a long trip, or having to deal with kind of like weird circumstances and things like that. But like ultimately our oversouls, our inner guides, will assist us in getting where we need to go. It's a matter of sensitizing to what forces are at play, what inner forces, what old patterns or timelines or things like that. And this is where really tuning into those different guides in nature, the celestial forces, which are also all within us, right? The trees are really that inner nervous system, right? The trees are literally the places within us that are taking and digesting those nutrients from within our soil, our web of our digestive tract. And then we have our nervous system that is being created and the dragons of the blood plasma that bring and feed the nervous system to be able to do its job. And these forces in nature, these spirits in nature, these different portions, these external aspects reflected to us that we can connect to and ask for that guidance when we're making these transitions. So I hope all this has assisted you in your process right now. The last thing we'll add for Beltane, although today is Beltane, so you may not, if you're watching this video in the future, it's totally okay. You can quantumly connect to this energy of Beltane, or you can just do it at the new moon. But Beltane has always had a very special ceremony in mind. And the ceremony is where you take a box and you write on a piece of paper. You can create a sigil, a picture, write specific things. And these are really prayers, things that are important for you. Things that you are calling in, things that are deeply important to you for the next period of the next year. And it lasts from Beltane to Beltane. Go out in nature, go deep into your meditation, ask for reception of prayers, guidance, and different things from Inner Father, Mother, God, Source, and these different aspects of yourself, nature, and the cosmos that are present. Ask for those different prayers, and you can do a ceremony where you bury a box of these prayers in the ground in a place that's special to you. And I will guarantee, in one way or another, those prayers will manifest. I've seen it for myself, for sure. And what I will say is, when it comes to those prayers, though, when we ask for things, be sure, first of all, that we want those things. If they're specific things, you may want to get very specific, right? Just ask for a car, right? And you're like, you may get a car that has a lot of problems or comes with things that may need to be fixed, right? This is why I also find that sometimes it can be better to ask for, things like inner peace, or contentment, or this may be asking for always having clarity and guidance on our path, those sorts of things, rather than external worldly things, because sometimes we ask for those external worldly things I'm not saying that you can, there's nothing wrong with that, but sometimes we can be asking from a place where it's our minds or it's these subconscious forces that we may not be able to see that are at play, that we're asking for, and then we receive things and we're like, I don't actually really want that, or I don't really want that in that way. So be sure, if you're doing these types of manifestation prayers, that it's really coming from that true sourced self within, and there is a total full body kind of clarity in what it is that you're asking and praying for. So yeah, I hope this has really been helpful for you. If any of this has been helpful for you, please smash up the like button, comment, connect with me down below on social media. I love to follow me. If you love a consultation from me, go onto the link of Clearsight Consulting. And I hope you have a blessed Beltane, blessed day and weekend and full moon, and wherever you're at. I really hope this is helpful, and so glad to connect with you deeper. And I will be having a lot more new messages coming up. I've had 4 or 5 different topics that I want to riff on come up to me in the last few days, so I can't wait to do those messages too. Thanks so much, and have a beautiful day. A star interstellar here.